Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei got harem with Rias, Sona and Raynare? Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Kidnapping a nun was easily said than done. Whenever she left the premises of the decrepit church, some undercover exorcists were always in sight and a fallen angel tailing her. The protection detail was intense. They didn't want the nun to fall into devil hands, that much was obvious. The fallen escort was Issei along with 4 disguised exorcists. How do you kidnap a nun under watch 24/7? You lead her to a park, of course. So that was what Issei did after accidentally bumping into her. They exchanged pleasantries and he offered to stay with her. Now here comes the hard part. The park was spacious. He could sense outwardly without much barriers such as trees, so finding the exorcists were easy. Issei was gone. Luck seemed to shine on him. But there was this nagging question that was stuck in his mind. Why? Issei was his first encounter. The man probably had suspicions about him already. Was it because he thought Issei was weak? No. The man was honor-bound. No matter what, he will never leave a mission because it's dishonorable. Oh well. He wasn't one to look at a gift horse in the mouth. Mana's signatures pinged in his mind. Just in time, he thought. It was a simple plan. Issei leads Asia and her escort somewhere open, but as not much people, then they incapacitate the exorcists. Then Issei takes the princess to school where Sona waits. They crept behind the bored exorcists, then knocked them out. That was easy. Hey. Asia. Want to see my school? Sona was there in front of the gates, arms crossed under her chest. She sorted out her feelings last night and it was almost undeniable. She was attracted. She liked puzzles. She liked intelligence. She liked someone who could give her a challenge. And Issei was the one who could give her these. The only problem was, her crush was human. Short lifespans unlike her, a devil who was nearly immortal. She sighed. Maybe she could convince him to be a devil. Well, if he refused Rias, a woman who can convince almost anyone, what chance does she have? And there he was. Talking animatedly with a blonde-haired nun. He was weird. Sometimes he was silent. Sometimes indifferent. Sometimes he was a pervert. He was unpredictable. And she liked it. So tan. That one, she didn't like. Just where did he get that stupid nickname? She remembered her sister. That was the nickname Serafo got for her. How annoying. She flicked his forehead. Don't call me that. He pouted. How was he just like her sister? Is this Asia? She ignored him. Yes, Asia Argento, Mom. The blonde girl answered. Moo. No need to be shy around so tan. She doesn't bite. I think. He added as an afterthought. Is she your G-girlfriend? They both froze. Sona felt blood rush to her face, while Issei had a faint dusting of red. And no. Issei answered. Well. Not yet at least. He grinned, with a thumbs up. Sona recovered and flicked him again. Follow me. Rias is waiting. With that, Sona started walking. You heard the lady. Let's go. When they arrived, Akeno was nowhere to be seen. Kiba and Kaneko were sitting on the couch. The Bishounen was napping slightly, while the emotionless girl was eating sweets. Irina was there, sitting in front of Rias. Raynare wasn't there though. Rias twitched. It wouldn't do any good if she punted him to the wall again. We brought a friend. Imsutbi Asia. Irina told us about you. Are you alright? Hi. Do you know of the fallen angels? Yes, Gremory-san. Rias is fine. Why did you join them? The church told me to go to them. All gazes fell to Irina. She shrugged helplessly. Her mission was to deliver her to the devils. There shouldn't even be any fallen angels here. Inside job. The fallen angels were well known for using humans in unique ways. As spies, middlemen, researchers, but their loyalties weren't always assured. Unlike the devil's use of humans through slavery, contracts, and the peerage system. The angels also use humans. Worship and prayers work like contracts. The angels give the humans what they want as long as it's reasonable, and in return, the humans take the heavens for their blessings. Same goes for the Greek gods. But little actually worship them, so they got weaker through time. To them, no matter how much they sugar-coated, humans were only resources. Expendable. Renewable. Useful. Which was why the one true God created the sacred gears. To give the humans a fighting chance. And they used it improperly. Most sacred gear users were either targeted by devils for their peerages, fallen angels for research and troops, and the angels to replenish their forces. Some users die without knowing why had won. Some who activated dies due to the stress and effects of their gears, and some joined a faction. And some were called heretics. Some were burnt at the stakes. Some were experimented on by their own kind. It was terrifying. In fact, Asia was probably lucky she was only expelled. Sacred gears were more of a curse than a blessing. Issei sighed. And to think he probably has one, then his life is bound to be more troublesome. He only hoped that whatever it was, it has to be useful. You want a plot twist? Here's your plot twist. You want them alive? Then let's keep them alive. Fallen angels, by default, were cunning. They had to, since only after the war did they find out that their forces could be replenished by procreation. Most angels fell because of the 7 deadly sins. And most were greedy. They wanted power. So they will take it by hook or by crook. Raynare met up with Donaseek in a sweets shop. The man was a restore honorable person. Which was why Azazel made him into a spy. Their leader had doubts on Kakabiel, the other cadre class fallen, and sent out spies to join on his plans. Donaseek was sent along 2 other spies. Raynare and Middled. Azazel believed that they were sent together not because Kakabiel knows. It was just coincidence. So they proceeded as Kakabiel wanted them to. But they would never complete the mission because Azazel was pulling them out. Raynare was to support them. But they knew that no matter how strong they were together, the exorcists were still powerful. Add that psycho cells in and they got a problem. As much as they hated to admit, the insane exorcist was strong. He was an artificial human. Made by an insuit. He was then titled as a genius in exorcism at age 13. But even then, he didn't believe in God and wanted to kill monsters and devils and almost anyone. He was a threat. But he was a puppy of Kakabiel, so eliminating him directly will bring them to the limelight. Unless if the devils kill him, which was unlikely, then Donaseek, Middled and Raynare will have to fight the devils as cover. Which brings them to their plan. The devils will assault the abandoned church, the 3 fallen will try to fight them off, everyone else dies. Simple. He requested Raynare to relay it to the devils. And so, it was only playing the waiting game. He sighed. Life as a spy is troublesome. Raynare told the people in the Orc what happened. Sona and her peerage arrived when she did, and they planned out their assault. They were confident in their skills, and while they were outnumbered, the capabilities of the exorcists were pitiful. Low mana capacities, poor swordsmanships, almost no coordination. It was like they weren't strays, but were kicked out of the academy. But with the help of the 3 fallen, then this battle is literally one-sided, in favor of the alliance. Issei couldn't help but feel nervous. There was something wrong with the picture. Lakia. He didn't know how to explain. It was like his gut was wrenching from Inst. Raynare placed her hand over his, and he couldn't help but feel slightly relieved. While her persona as Yuma was different, there already was a connection between them. A bond. So he still accepted her, as did she. At 1800 hours, the devils left through teleportation circles, while Raynare and Akeno flew with Irina and Issei. Asia was left in the Orc Club with Momo and Tsubaki to protect her. Issei sighed. He hoped that everything goes according to plan. And if it doesn't, well. He was always the optimist. The hoper of far-flung hopes, the dreamer of improbable dreams. Everything has gone to shit. The exorcists were easy. Oh, they were. Practically grass to a lawnmower. Raynare, Middled and Donaseek has gone into battle almost instantly, wreaking havoc within their ranks. Sona, Rias, Akeno and the Citries bishops have started casting spells upon the enemy, ripping them apart with area of effect attacks. Hineko, Saji, Kiba, Irina and the other rooks have entered the fray, weapons drawn, fists punching the exorcists through the ground. Issei and Raynare have been throwing spears at the enemy and everything was going well. Going far too well. A massive burst of energy and 3 normal-looking exorcists transformed. With 3 pairs of wings, they seemed to be generic. They didn't bother with names nor introductions and started dropping hails of different colored spears upon the band of devils. Issei's eyes widened. Oh no. This wasn't what they prepared for. He rushed towards the spellcasters and casted a barrier. It won't last long. It would take at least 3 more barrages before going down. He felt his reserves dip slowly. The brown-haired mage was at half capacity. Middled stabbed the fallen on the right with a spear, killing it almost instantly, but she didn't notice the spear coming towards her and it impaled her through the stomach. Issei's body froze. Raynare soon came, spear drawn and face contorted into unrestrained anger. She was so absorbed in her emotions that she noticed the sword swinging at her head until it was too late. Her head flew off, the spear dissipating in the air. Issei heard the faint scream of denial from Raynare, his eyes widened more. No. No. This wasn't supposed to happen. How did he not notice it? Why didn't he take undercovers into account? Now there were casualties. Casualties that no matter what they said, was entirely his fault. It was his plan. They were his responsibility. While he didn't know them personally, it seemed like Raynare did. And he hated it. Hated himself for not being able to protect them. Overfueled with anger towards himself, the dragon within him activated and materialized as a gauntlet in his left arm. Boost. He felt his reserves replenish and grow. He aimed his gauntleted arm and prepared a magic circle the size of his palms, and released. Flames hotter than the sun bursted forth, causing an inferno, burning through the exorcists and the remaining two fallen. It burned everyone and everything, leaving nothing but ash and blackened dirt. It was good that the close-ranged fighters of the group retreated at the appearance of the fallen, or else they might have been burnt as well. The spell left Issei exhausted, his gauntlet dematerializing. Faintly, he noticed Sona and Raynare approach him, supporting his shoulders. He sighed and fell unconscious. He felt like shit thrown into a plastic bag and spun around and then thrown. What a weird comparison. Rias approached the body of Middled. She was barely alive, having minor wounds and major blood loss. She let her hand wander through her pockets, looking at the red piece. Bishop. And no. Please. The least we could do is honor her death. The fedora man said. His clothes were battered, his tone solemn. Rias placed the piece back to her pocket. I suppose. If it's worth it, I'm sorry. She walked away, leaving the grieving man to himself. The Donasik, Middled was like a little sister. A masochistic little sister, maybe. But the three of them, including Raynare, were almost like family. He knelt beside the lowly-looking woman and for the first time in centuries, cried. Until he noticed a glowing green hand touching the almost corpse. Blonde hair, none outside their sacred gear was capable of healing everyone. His hopes flew up slightly. He prayed to the deities he knew of and wished that the nun could heal the last of his family. The wound in her stomach closed shut, the burns disappearing. Her breathing was back to normal. Even if he lost Raynare, at least Middled was still with him. He fell unconscious shortly after. The aftermath was slightly tragic. One reported casualty. One severely injured. Most of them were injured in one way or another. 5 were unconscious. The enemy were slaughtered and burnt. One was reported to have gotten away. The freed Selzen. Sona sighed, her hands wandering through the brown hair of the person on her laps. Raynare was unconscious, so was Raynare. Rias was busy administering first aid. Asia was immediately called to save the almost casualty and help in the treatment of wounds. While there were unexpected variables, they managed to pull through. Those fallen were no joke. Having 3 pairs of wings. They were lucky to have someone capable of barriers. The casualty wasn't expected, and knowing Issei, in all of his supus genius, he's never taken a life before. Much less saw a person killed in front of him. And they all followed his plans, so he was probably blaming himself. She decided to visit him afterwards, maybe talk to him. She sighed again. Issei was just so interesting to be with. Issei woke up with a jolt, a thin sheen of sweat covering his face. A weight was pressed on his side and he noticed the red hue of his pit couch. What happened? How long was he out? He reached for the thing beside him and groped. He heard the moan, alright. But he couldn't stop massaging that thing. It was squishy and soft yet firm. His eyes bolted awake as his head strained to see what the warm object was. He saw black and smelled like strawberries. Hair. Moo. Issei-kun, it moaned. Raynare. The pressure around his waist increased, almost suffocating him. He sighed and decided to just wait, and then his eyes drooped again. 2 days. He was unconscious for 2 days. Mana depletion, physical strain, and the stress of the sacred gear materialization forced him into blissful unawareness. And then he asked what happened after the battle. 1 death and 1 still stuck in coma. Both fallen angels. Spies generally don't have a family or loved ones since their jobs are really dangerous. Which means that should a spy die, then no one will know other than those who saw and the people in the upper echelon of the government. He sighed. Asia had decided to be a devil because apparently she wanted to be strong and the next best thing she could do was ally herself with Rias. Raynare had started attending Kuo as well. Though reluctant at first, Rias and Sona had practically coerced her into it. Donasik and the still unconscious Middled had gone to their leader to report. Raynare apparently wanted to come with them but was shot down by the fedora-wearing man himself. Raynare didn't leave his side for 2 days. Her reasoning for settling on the pit couch was because she couldn't open his door and they wouldn't fit in her room. She had plans on studying in Kuo Academy to maintain good relationships with the devils. And 2. So there they were. Cuddling on the pit couch while watching movies. Their relationship was weird. They've gone in a single date and that probably didn't count because she was hiding her identity. Hey, Ray-chan. Want to go on a date on Saturday? Uh-huh. And where will we go, Ice-kun? Raynare asked, her eyes straying to his face. Anywhere, I guess. I know for a fact that there's an arcade somewhere in town. Alrighty. Then they both refocused their eyes to the TV, basking in each other's warmth. Sunday ended quickly. He wasted time watching DW and reading grimoires while recovering. There weren't much happenings other than a letter dropped into his mail. The brown-haired mage picked it up and read it, eyes slightly wide in surprise. It was from Sirzich's Lucifer, one of the four mass, and probably the strongest in the underworld. It was a letter of apology and gratefulness for his support in the lot excursion. Though the apology wasn't needed, the reward was. The seal glowed red in the bottom of the letter, and he threw it to the ground immediately, expecting a boom. A poof of smoke. What a disappointment. When the smoke cleared, there were stacks of cash on the ground, piled properly. He estimated it to be at least 5 million yen, and his eyes almost rolled backwards. Holy shit. That's a lot of money. Olin's after-plans whirred into his mind as he absent-mindedly out the cash in his vault upstairs. If he knew that these kind of things paid this much, then he would have spoken with he devils early on. And he knew what to get first that will help in the long run. His second project. After dabbling with robotics, he jabbed the Adia for the perfect poison. Monday came and he walked toward school, his demeanor unusually serious. His thoughts strayed to Ria's problem, and he had a plan. He was slightly afraid though. While his plans did work, there were usually something that went wrong. Like the last plan he made. But this time, he prepared early on. That Phoenix will either die or his parents will stop the marriage. Simple. Except for the fact that he has to fight the immortal devil, but that doesn't really matter. Issei. A stern yet concerned voice startled him back into reality. Oh, hey there, So-chan. He plastered a quick grin in his face. She flicked his forehead again. He groaned in pain until he noticed the pure concern in her purple eyes. Are you sure you should be attending school? Oh wow. So Nakaichu is asking to ditch school. Saji must be a terrible influence. He feigned a sigh dramatically. I suppose you are alright if you can insult people this early in the morning. Insult? Oh no, I'm merely stating facts. He paused, as if in thought. Did you know, that pawn of yours is actually a perv? Excuse me? She looked at him oddly. Yeah. He affirmed. That Genshiru has a lot of hentai hidden under a link in his home. Did you break in his house? She questioned incredulously. Me? Of course not. Maybe. He denied as he placed his hands in his pockets. Well. This is my stop. See you later, Sona-chan. He said as he dodged her flick. She'd scat in response as he grinned at her. She was cute when riled up. Ah. What was he thinking? He has a girlfriend already. He muttered a curse under his breath. He sat on his assigned seat and leaned his head on the desk. It was probably another boring and dull day. Oh, how wrong he was. Good morning, students. Good morning, sensei. Came their simultaneous response. Before we start, we have 2 new students. Sadly though, Motohama and Mitsuda were kicked out last week for having multiple violations. Issei's eyes widened, his jaw slacked. What? The perverted duo was expelled. His eyes refocused again when the doors opened and in came 2 ladies. One had raven hair and the other blonde. Hello. I'm Yuma Mono, call me Yuma. Please take care of me. Heyo. I'm Arena Hyoudou, you may call me Arena. I hope we get along together. What? The fuck? He sighed. Life in school is definitely going to be troublesome. Issei observed the classroom and noticed that the only available seats were beside him. The ones the duo once occupied. Ah. Damn. The only hope that school life wouldn't be like those Powerpuff Girls Z thing, where he has to make weird-ass diseases to infect himself with to escape class. School went on fine. He got over the shock of the M duo's expulsion and Arena and Raynare's insertion in his class. They acted pretty normal, except for when both girls start fighting over something he could understand. He decided to ignore them as class went on. Sona had visited him on the rooftop during lunch break and challenged him to another chess battle. He won again. Afterwards, she decided to have a chess match every lunch and Issei merely smirked at her. She glared at him, then let out a small smile as well. The 2 ate lunch together on the rooftop, basking in the silence and tranquility of the place. And soon, dismissal came. Raynare and him walked home, with him asking her how school was. It was annoying, she said. Boys in Kuo Academy had already started asking her on a date. His eyes narrowed. As if noticing his distaste, she switched the subject as she started asking him how his day was and if he was fine. They reached their home and went to their rooms. Issei had given books to his fallen girlfriend. Spell books and some hand-to-hand combat techniques to further her skills. It showed his trust to her and she accepted it. So they both trained together in the basement. The lower level of the house was bare, but it was large. The walls were painted gray, the lights were bright, and the ground was set like an arena. There was a fridge and a copy of the kitchen upstairs, chairs lining the walls, 2 blue portlets were on the side, and some dummies set up on the far wall. There were some weapons on the weapon racks near the dummies. Swords, bows, arrows, guns, and some odd things like maces, warhammers, axes, kunais and shurikens in boxes. When Raynare first entered the place, her jaw immediately slacked mouth agape. Who owned these? Well, technically, me. But legitimately, they were my mother's. What happened to her? She's gone. Raynare stopped to gauge the reaction of the brunette. She knew it was a touchy subject. But to see his eyes sad and dark, she felt guilty. I'm sorry. Ma. What's past is past. At least I get these slightly illegal goodies. He reverted back to the jolly him, eyes lighting up. Have you used these? Yeah. Some of them. Personally, I like the pistols better. Pistols? Why? Small and handy. Easily hidden. Actually have one always in my bag. He paused. Well, sometimes. The ammunition is cheap too. Then why didn't you use it in the battle? I forgot to bring one. You forgot? Was her dry response. Don't blame me. My mind was all over the place. She snorted as she picked up a spear and then threw it at the dummy. Dead center in the head. Remind me not to anger you next time. When they were finished, 15 dummies were obliterated completely. Some burnt, some resembling a sponge, some were porcupines, and some lost parts of their bodies. The walls weren't safe either. Scorch marks darkened the gray walls, a light bulb was busted from a stray lightning bolt. The floor was drenched and some parts were elevated, stray weapons scattered on the floor. And in the center of all were two young teenagers, panting slightly from the exertion. Clothes ripped and scorched, frames sweaty and tangled together. If someone were to ignore everything else, they would think the two were having some steamy passionate sexy time. Issei sighed in exhaustion. He hoped that Heaver makes his girl angry, lest he get a spear aimed at his nuts and that his plans work as they should. With that, he fell into unconsciousness. The week went on with the same routine without a hitch aside from when his order had arrived. The project he had in mind dealt with potions and poisons, and the package delivered had the ingredients required for a slow-acting mana-eater and coma-inducer. He cackled evilly in his mind. School went on, some assignments, his chess match with Kaichu, more schoolwork, training and sparring with Raynare, and more research on the project he's working on. His screwdriver had a built-in sonic shot for stunning people, had longer range to lock doors, and a bullet pen. Cause why not? He knew that fighting a phoenix head-on is near suicidal, and he was 100% sure that he will lose the battle, but he will make sure that something bad happens to the asshole. After that was merely a psychological battle. And he liked those very much. The couple of bruises and burns will be worth it. Thursday night was weird. Strange, actually. Raynare went somewhere, promising takeout, so he sat on the pit couch covered in blankets, watching Sherlock on Netflix, when all of a sudden, a pattern appeared on the floor and shone. Teleportation circle. Maybe he should start using that. Imagine the possibilities of teleporting to the nearest pizza place, then going back home. He was snapped out of his musing when Rias in all her red-headed glory appeared before him. She seemed all over the place, eyes showing depression and desperation. Yo, Rias. What's up? I say. You told me that you'll help me end my engagement, right? She stuttered, as if unsure of what she was doing. Yeah. Why? He furrowed his brows in confusion. Please take my virginity. What? He vocalized. Wait. Stop. He shouted when she started unbuttoning her uniform. She stopped, eyes brimming with tears, her hands clenching and unclenching beside her. What the hell happened? They want the marriage to happen immediately. I thought you had until you graduate. My parents decided to do it as soon as possible. I don't know why. Look. I have a plan, okay? Just calm down. There's no other way, Issei. Please. His eyes turned sharp. Is this what you want then? To sell yourself off? He stated coldly, standing up. She flinched, eyes flowing with tears as he approached her, his tone low. To let someone you barely know take your purity as long as you get what you want. She started backing up as his steps got nearer. To cross out all other options, to simply just use the easiest route. He seemed to be getting closer, her vision started warp. Then you are a fool. And you call yourself a king, a person who has lives under her, people who will be affected by your choices. She bumped into the wall, with him caging her. Her thoughts flew to her peerage and her friends. What do you think will happen afterwards if I do as I please to you? She suddenly got nervous, her tears still flowing, but her eyes held fear. His face invaded her personal space, his hand slamming into the wall as he trapped her head in between. You might think that there's only one choice, but always know that there's another. You just have to believe in it. With that, he left her sliding on the floor, eyes unfocused. In the back of her mind, she knew that if it was anyone else, then she's be on the floor sullied and dirty. Issei entered the kitchen, opened the tap, then started washing his face. The cold water soothed his nerves and his slight arousal. Who wouldn't he when a goddess of beauty offered sex to him? He sighed. Rias and her race are really troublesome. And aren't there fucking contracts? Contracts were there for a reason, and if both parties agree to a change, then that is when they have the right to change it. But Rias clearly declines. Then that means that the contract was made by her parents, long before she was born. Ah, fuck it. He'll do his plan anyways, even if the gates of hell appear in front of his home demanding his soul. He sighed again. His stomach rumbled and he groaned. Raynare was late, so he might as well eat some snacks. Issei entered the living room with a tray with 3 cups of tea, a pot of the warm drink, and some mochi he kept in his stash. To his surprise, Rias seemed to have calmed down enough to situate herself on the couch. Her eyes were fixated to the TV showing Supernatural. How ironic. A show about the supernatural being watched by a supernatural. He served the tea and the mochi beside her as he sat on the couch as well. Issei, you're right. I'm sorry, she stated. I apologize as well. I shouldn't have said harsh words. They both continued to watch, Issei gaining some respect towards the show. The show is interesting. Just like Sherlock. And Doctor Who. Msaib, he should watch these too. There's a lot of seasons. Rias, however, was alternating her looks from the TV to the male beside her. He seemed so relaxed. Like nothing happened earlier. It was weird. Hey Issei. What's your plan? Tell you tomorrow. Came his short reply. Is this show really that good? He was interrupted again when another teleportation circle appeared. A flash of light and in come a devil with silver hair wearing a maid outfit. She had a cold mask in place that screamed professionalism. Rias-sama. I hope you haven't done anything rash. The redhead glared at her. What do they want now? The silver-haired maid frowned ever so slightly. I was sent to make sure you didn't sell yourself to void the marriage. The small flinch of the girl was not missed as the silverette's eyes narrowed. And no. I did, Booth refused. And to whom did you offer it? Her eyes traveled to the silent brunette who seemed to be so absorbed to the show. He waved his hand at the strongest queen as if to say hello, though his eyes never left the screen. You? Me? He asked, confused. Rias said you were a pervert. Why did you decline? He looked at Rias, feigning hurt. His hand flew to his chest where his heart was while the other wiped an invisible tear. The lady's sweat dropped. Then his face turned serious. I may be a pervert, but I do have morals. Morals that he can throw aside, but they don't have to know that. Oh. I apologize if I have offended you. I also apologize for whatever my idiotic charge has done. Ma, no harm, no foul. She nodded in appreciation. Rias, your brother calls for you. Won't you stay for tea? Issei offered. Thank you for your hospitality, but we must go. Rias stole a mochi and then sipped her tea, then stied up. Well then. Let's go. Then she turned around and faced the brown-haired mage. Meet me tomorrow. Of course. He hoped that things go smoothly and according to plan. Based on this visit, then he could expect the Phoenix heir to appear sometime this week or the next. Oh well. His plans were already clear and ready to go. All he needs is the target and his plan is set in full motion. With that, he flipped the show back to Sherlock and waited for Raynare. He sighed and rewrapped the blankets around his frame. The door opened as soon as he got comfortable. He groaned in annoyance. Everyone likes to cut into his alone time, it seems. Friday. Issei noticed it immediately. The tense atmosphere around the peerages, the weird moves of Sona during their match, the way everyone else seemed to not notice it. And when he was called in by Kiba, he knew that shit was about to hit the fan. The blonde knight led him to the old school building. Issei extended his senses and detected 2 different signatures. One was the maid from last night. The mana felt cold. Ice affinity. The other was uncontrolled. Fire. Probably the Phoenix. He sighed. Good thing he came prepared, but his nerves were still on edge. There was a chance that the high-class devil will decline his challenge, which could be easily rectified by insulting the arrogant acid. Which could bring his entire peerage and the Phoenix himself upon the mage. The Phoenix clan was mostly composed of hotheads, arrogants, and narcissists. Just because they have their so-called immortality doesn't mean they're invincible. As Issei and Kiba entered the building, they immediately fixed themselves. The tense atmosphere was present in the air, the peerage members of Rias stood tensely as if ready to fight, while the silver-haired woman was standing behind Rias. The tall, handsome male was beside the redhead, an arrogant smirk present in his face, his blonde hair seemed to glow for some weird reason. Rias seemed to perk up slightly, her eyes lighting up in relief. Issei, meet Riser Phoenix. He's Mephiance. Riser seemed to be both amused and disgusted. And what is a filthy human doing here? This filthy human is about to offer you a contract. And why should I, an immortal, entertain your offer? Power? The man raised an eyebrow. Do you think I need power? I could best anyone in this realm, alone. But I'm pretty sure you can't beat any of the gods. Then what are you willing to offer? A potion that increases your mana. And how would I know it works? Let's try it then. I'll give you a temporary type that lasts for a day. You aren't as stupid as I thought. But still stupid to give him a power-up right before a fight. Issei ignored the insult. Riser Phoenix, I, Issei Hyoudou, challenge you to a duel. Should I win, you stop the marriage. And if you do, then I give you the perfected potion. Silence permeated the air. Some eyes were wide, Kaneko was face-palming though. Meh. Any reaction was good. Well then, challenge accepted. They were transported to a pocket dimension almost immediately. The dimension was plain. Grasses and dirt, some hills and nothing else. The others were on top of one hill, away from them but the mana of the phoenix was obvious in the air. The potion. He reached in his pocket and threw it at the blonde, eyes still roaming around. The dirt seemed so real. Interesting. What is this? Asked the devil, eyeing the blue liquid in the vial. Drink it. Riser uncorked the vial and drank the contents. His eyes widened. The feeling was euphoric. He could feel his mana coursing around him, like his power was extending outwards. If only he wasn't so focused to the feeling, he would have noticed a dark smile on the brunette's face. Let's start. Riser said, not even wondering why his enemy would give him a power-up when they were about to fight, nor did he notice the fact that his mana reserves were quickly dwindling. Everything was going as planned. Issei jumped back immediately, his hands flying forwards. The concentrated beam of lightning flew from the magic circle. It hit the devil directly on the chest, though most of the attack dissipated against the aura. Issei frowned. That was unexpected. This needs to be experimented on. He conjured another magic circle and threw a fireball at the still charging phoenix. It seemed that the potion also affected the mind, chipping away at rationality. Well, not much, since he had to backflip just to dodge a stream of flames that countered his. Issei decided for a combination spell. Water and lightning dragon spurred out of his hands as they merged and attacked the charging phoenix. It hit again, though the damage was cut in half. Looks like his mana is in the low. The phoenix seemed to be getting back to rationality, though it was refueled back by anger. This human dared to damage him. This filthy garbage managed to elude his attacks. This weak coward is still running towards the dimensional barrier. He grinned ferociously, his eyes blazing. His opponent was bound to be cornered, his eyes only focusing on the brunette. He summoned his flames, surrounding him with an aura of hot blazing fire. He never noticed his mana going down as he exerted more and more energy towards his flames, trying to at least hurt the brown-haired coward. His enemy dodged around them with surprising ease. Issei had to, because Raynare really liked throwing stuff at him, so he had to learn how to evade around them. And his opponent hasn't used any area of effect attacks yet, so he managed to dodge the attacks. Then all of a sudden, his back hit a wall. His eyes widened. There were no walls around here. Riser noticed his surprise and confusion and decided to start an evil villain threat. You insolent trash. You cannot defeat a phoenix. His opponent has gotten over his confusion and started an impromptu circle. Boost. Mana flushed through his systems and replenished his reserves, so he pushed all that he could into the light spear circle. It impaled the man through the heart, an instant kill. The revival of the phoenix kicked in, a pillar of fire lit up and out came a naked Riser. Unconscious. Issei slumped on the ground, his eyes focused on his left arm. So this was his sacred gear. A red gauntlet that reached his upper arm, looks draconic, with a green gem on the head. Why you did it? Rias shouted, hugging him. How she managed to reach him was thrown out of his mind in favor of breathing. Air. Need air. He gasped out. She didn't seem to hear him, but he was Govan Mercy when the maid pulled the red head away. Please act civilized, Rias-sama. Came the neutral voice. Issei took in gulps of air, his eyes never leaving the body of the high-class devil. If he hadn't drunk the poison, then there was no chance of him winning. The poison expelled all of the mana in a person's reserves, though albeit slowly. The mana creates a barrier around the poisoned individual. It was a double-edged blade. All mana-based attacks are nullified or cut depending on the amount of mana expelled, though the reserves are quickly depleted. Phoenix's revival required mana. Run out of mana and they're dead as long as you kill them immediately. Riser's mana were low, but not low enough to warrant death, only enough to revive him, flush the poison, then fall due to mana exhaustion. Though if he didn't get knocked out, then it was sure that he will pull something underhanded and Issei will have to resort to drastic measures. It was the difference between him and his all-time favorite. He could do the worst thing imaginable and only have a night regretting it. Afterwards, he'd be good as new. He sighed. This was another problem resolved. Now to get what he needed from the heiress. At least things were turning up for him. He only had to establish a mental link to confirm his gear, take Raynare to a date tomorrow, and then sleep. Sleep. He hoped that things stay fine and that he gets dragged into more adventures, and possible death was always welcomed. They were transported back to the old school building. The maid, Grafia, told them all to wait for a moment and then disappeared along with the body of Rias. He was tempted to crack a joke about the body but decided that it wasn't worth it. Issei checked his reserves. Seems like the efficiency of his spells have gone up, with him only halfway his reserves and increasing. What was the thing that you made him drink? The queen, Akeno, asked. Mana something. Didn't read the name. Looked like it was helpful, so I made it. Wait. You made a potion you didn't know anything about? Came her incredulous rebuttal. Nah, not really. I knew what it does. I just didn't bother to memorize the name. More like he didn't bother to name it. The potion was ineffective. It should gradually siphon mana, not make a shield for his enemies. Perhaps there was a mistake in the concoction, he didn't know. At least could be activated twice. And it could stick to the body, tell it that it's helpful, and the immune system will ignore it. Helpful if you have an enemy that can revive. The Phoenix revival does many things. It takes away mana in exchange for a brand new, naked, shiny body without any blemishes, sicknesses, and whatever random harm taken from last time. At least, physically. Mentally was a different thing altogether. A death can and will cause shock and trauma over a certain thing. Any other mental illness cannot be changed by the revive. One glaring mistake to the revival is that should something useful, like medicine, will not be flushed out. Because it's useful. Why take it out? The potion convinces the immune system that it's helpful by killing the infection within the vial. So that means the potion has two things in it. The actual solution, the virus, and a sample of Issei's mana. Activated twice remotely as an added bonus. He was snapped out of his musing when Grafia reappeared again. Lord Lucifer has called for you, Rias-sama. Issei sighed in relief. At least he wasn't. Along with you, Hyoudou-san. Spoke too soon. The underworld wasn't hot, apparently. It isn't a sea of lava and fire either. Nor is it full of souls screaming in agony and begging for mercy, so that was a plus. At least, he hasn't heard any screams yet, since he's in a very fancy room. A flight of stairs, a throne placed on top, a smiling man seated comfortably, and Grafia who stood beside him. Freaking hell. Couldn't these devils warn him before teleporting? Riatan. It's so nice to see you. The red-headed man seemed to suddenly teleport towards Rias, glumping the embarrassed girl. Assist Khan. Issei activated his mana sensing ability and couldn't help but take a step back. If compared to anyone in the room, Grafia was probably the closest, and even then her reserves are half of his. And compared to him, it would be an ocean against a bucket of water. That was a terrifying thought. Grafia appeared beside the man and pulled his ear. Issei held a snort back. Surzicha-sama, please act accordingly. We have a guest. The Silverette told the whining devil. Alright. Let go, Grafia. He continued to beg. She let go of his flushed ear and his hands flew to soothe the pain. Oh. Yeah. Guest. He mumbled, though everyone still heard him. Issei twitched imperceptibly. Surzicha's plastered an easygoing grin on his face, his hands spread wide in a form of welcome. Welcome to the underworld. So? Issei Hyoudou. The one who planned the church operation and the guy who broke my sister's arranged marriage. The strongest devil said. To be honest, I don't know what to say or do. Rias has told me about the conditions of your battle and he's speaking to the heads of his clan now. So it's the problem. Problem is. He wasn't the one made the marriage contract. That means he has no say to it, just like my sister. Wait. What? The Gremory clan heads and the Phoenix clan heads formed it, so I also have no say in it, even if I was a Gremory. You gave that name up when you accepted the seat as Lucifer. Issei trailed off. There's a high chance that one party of the contract to continue the marriage, regardless of Rias's loss. Though Rias's reputation might be tarnished because of the unfulfilled contract, it would be boosted anyways when the marriage goes full steam ahead. If they do stop the marriage, a lot of devils will be outraged since they've been expecting the marriage for 14 years. By the sun, this is a mess. He slightly regretted promising Rias. Oh well. He was in it, he might as well complete it. Then call for a meeting, immediately if possible. Very well then. I suppose you have a plan. Maybe. He smirked at the devil, and the devil couldn't help but repress a shiver. The Gremory and Phoenix heads were summoned immediately. What is this about? Questioned Venelana Gremory asked her husband. It's probably about our daughter's marriage. We did request for it to be moved forward. Which was completely pointless, since it's clan business. I have called you here to talk about the marriage between Rias Gremory and Riser Phoenix. Earlier this afternoon, there had been a complication. Riser was defeated in a battle with the conditions in which he must stop the marriage. Serziches paused, waiting for a response from the Phoenix clan. He has no choice in this marriage. Riser has agreed to the marriage long before, he cannot stop it now that the ceremony is near. So you're just going to ignore the conditions of his loss? Yes. Interesting. What do you say about this, Issei? Ignore his loss. So you'll obstinately sweep it under the rag and pretend it didn't happen? Who are you, filthy human? Issei Hyoudou, the one who almost killed your son. The gasp was heard somewhere, but was ignored. Yes. A loss to a human will be a disgrace. In fact, a human like you has no right to do anything in our domain. Then maybe I should just kill your son. After all, he is still bound by our contract to stop the marriage. What more could stop a wedding without the groom himself? Serzich's eyebrows raised slightly. Threatening a devil with suicide and takes a lot of guts. Excuse me? The Phoenixes were taken aback. He agreed to the conditions. He lost. Therefore, he has to stop it any way that he can. Even if he allows me to kill him. And what makes you think we can't just kill you? My girlfriend is a fallen angel, we have a date tomorrow. A friend of mine is a holy sword user sent directly by the church. And the doors burst open, a servant looking afraid and disheveled. Lord Phoenix. It's Riser, his mana is being expelled. All eyes in the room widened. Well, mana exhaustion wasn't a danger by itself if expelled continuously without any source available. After all, you can't pull something out of nothing, then it will start to take in something else. Natural energy. Which temporarily causes insanity in exchange for power. A literal deal with the devil. That. Kill me, and you'll never be able to stop it. The poison is linked to my mana, and should you be able to stop it and then kill me? Then you've got another war for yourselves. Mouths were agape, Serzich's mind was in a state of disbelief. This kid was insane. Should the Phoenixes kill him, then the fallen angel will be notified, along with the holy sword user. And if intel was correct, Raynare was very close to Azazel, and the sword user was rather high up in the chain of command. Add the fact that he's a Longinus host, then the people who got their eyes on him will revolt. What do you want then? The panicked clan head shouted, his wife was slightly ventilating. Half of your treasury and for you stop the marriage. Fine. Just stop it. Meh. Already did. Poison lasts for 10 minutes max. Serziches refused to laugh. So they were worried for no reason. Well then. That sums it up. Thanks for agreeing, but I must leave. Issei turned his back and in a flash he rotated again, activating his sacred gear. Just in time to block a stream of fire. Why did you do that? Isis that the boosted gear. So that's what it's called. Interesting. He powered up a teleportation circle beneath him. Oh yeah. I expect the money tomorrow. Good evening. And in a brilliant flash, he was gone, leaving a flabbergasted room with an agitated man. All in a day's work. The sun filtered through his windows, his frame groggily straightening up. Yesterday was very troublesome, and when he got home, he dropped the paper bag of food on the counter and dropped himself on the couch. And then he promptly fell asleep. He shoved the blankets away from him and tried to move his legs, only to fail when he finally noticed that they were numb. Issei twitched a brow. The numbness was slowly receding from his thighs, and only did he notice the weight of something over his poor numb legs. This time, his eye twitched. Raynare's leg was over his, and by the sun were they heavy. No, she wasn't fat, that's for sure. Then why were they so heavy? He poked her flushed cheeks, eliciting a small, soft moan. The brunette sighed. She's going to wake up soon, but he really needed to take a piss. Gently moving her legs from his, he stood up and stretched, groaning in content. He proceeded towards the bathroom to freshen up and release his flood dams. Heading for the kitchen, he opened a cupboard and took the cereal box and 2 bowls. The mage then took milk from the fridge and spoons from a drawer. Settling down on the dining table, he ate. Robotically taking spoonfuls of his breakfast, his mind was whirring all around. He forced his brain to not think about anything else but his date. The devils could wait until Sunday, since never seemed to be an option. Raynare plumped on a chair in front of him, already having made her breakfast. She yawned before stretching, her bust popping outwards. Issei's eyebrow twitched, some blood dropping from his nose. Why are you naked? He tried to deadpan, though he still stuttered. His voice hitched at the end, actually. She peeked at him from one eye, an eyebrow slightly raised. Then her face practically turned feral, smiling deviously. Are you complaining, ice cun? She purred, leaning over the table. It's way too early for this, don't you think? He attempted his best at not reacting outwardly. His cheeks were red, his eyes were taking glances at her exposed bosom and slightly shown lower lips. She smiled sultrily at him, still leaning forward. Don't you want me to be your breakfast, Isama? His response was shoving his spoon with cereal in her mouth. Eat. The brunette kept his head low, almost touching the bowl with his unkempt hair. Raynare laughed, her hand waving his spoon in the air. You're so easy sometimes. He wiped away the blood from his nose, already planning his revenge. She will never know what hit her. The mage stood up to prepare himself, and he couldn't help but feel nervous. This was his first serious date. His first one was with the same girl, but with him being a literal paranoid wreck, but this time, he's gonna be a nervous wreck. Hey Issei. No need to be nervous. I won't bite. Raynare spoke from behind him, yet. He repressed a shudder. Sheesh. After fixing themselves, the pair headed out for the city. They walked and spoke with each other, laughing as they go. Though Issei decided to atlas canvas for cars. Walking was troublesome. Raynare wore a white blouse and a green skirt, her hair set up by a headband. She had a handbag on one hand and Issei's hand in the other. Issei wore a long-sleeved red shirt, a yellow unbuttoned polo, and brown pants. He had a gray sling bag with some random stuff he filled it with. Random stuff being candy and chocolates, with some IDs and his wallet. They reached the arcade and started their friendly competition. Shooting games, basketball, a random fishing game, punched a bag, dropped the hammer, raced against each other, and had fun in general. The lovers laughed a lot, their minds for once not thinking about problems. They then headed for clothes shopping, deciding that the both of them needed more clothes. And since they were practically rich, they MJGHT as well treat themselves at least this once. Raynare felt like she was freeloading, but Issei assured her that she was his lady and therefore must treat her. She blushed afterwards and just accepted his insistence. Then they went for many other things like phones and some random thing they liked. A couple of shopping bags later and they decided to stop. They both carried the items they bought and went for a restaurant to eat lunch. And soon they found themselves in the same park they went to before. Raynare and Issei sat beside the fountain and they started talking. Mostly nonsense, like Raynare's experience in flying as a fallen angel and some random stories she heard from the other fallen angel and her complaints about her commanding officer. Issei listened on, laughing along with her, sometimes adding remarks and cracking some puns. Then he started his own stories. From his adventures as a perv to some of his mistakes in training to his wonderful yet average school life. His life was rather boring for him, but apparently the angstless parts of it was still funny. It was reaching nighttime and Tay decided to just go home for the rest of it and watch a movie. The both of them were usually busy on Sundays and ever since his encounter with the supernatural, they've both been more busy. They even heard from Ray-chan that some fallen were starting to disappear from their posts and the rate and number of disappearances were increasing more and more. Suspicions were rising from the upper echelon of their leaders and the top one suspect was another cadre class named Kakabiel. The mage banished the thoughts away. His focus was on his date and his date alone, none of that stupid supernatural things. At least let him have some sense of normalcy back. They both lied down on the couch, blankets over their bodies. Issei. Last question she hesitated a little. What is it? He asked a little bit curious. What are we? He looked at her strangely. I mean, what's our relationship? Oh. So that's what she meant. Well, he guess we're in a relationship. Like girlfriends thing. She pressed on. Only if you want to, Ray-chan, he answered softly. The raven-haired beauty smiled at him and pecked his lips, a blush adorning her white flawless cheeks. Issei paused, his hands reaching for his lips, his body stock still. What happened? His mind went blank, everything was stuck in slow motion. And then his hands moved on auto, reaching for her flustered face, and then his face leaned forwards, lips touching hers. Their eyes closed as they melted into the slightly amateurish lip lock. The need for oxygen ended their kiss, their eyes met, gazes glazed slightly. Their faces were red, a warm blush spread across their cheeks. A smile adorned both of them, adrenaline coursing through their bodies. He jolted upwards when something warm caressed his clothed direction. The mage's face burned brighter than the sun that it was almost visible in their current lighting. Don't think I'm ready for that yet, Ray-chan. He stuttered, forcing down his moans. She pouted, are you sure, Ice-kun? She said sensually. He nodded furiously, his face heating a lot more than usual. Then I guess this will do, she mumbled as her head was nestled in the crook of his neck, her body cuddling with him. He wrapped his arms around her and sighed in content. Everything was good, at least. Issei's hopes were usually crushed repetitively, but he still wished and hoped for the best out of the situations. Even if sometimes he's a cynic and a pessimist, and even if usually life walks over him, hoping is still a human characteristic that he can't throw away. And with that thought, Issei hoped for the betterment of the lives of everyone and for the sake of his sanity, some free time. He wasn't procrastinating. Really? Okay. Maybe a teensy tiny bit, but he was bored. Like really bored. So here he was once again on the couch, eating spicy noodles. The TV was on, a spell book open beside him, a notebook sitting on his lap as he wrote away. See. He wasn't procrastinating. What are you doing? A stern voice spoke behind him. The mage jolted at the sound, almost dropping his precious noodles. Hi Sona. How'd you get in? He asked, smashing off button of the remote. Through the window, she rolled her purple eyes. Was that a reference? He wondered curiously. A small dust of pink tinged her face, maybe. Hey, sit. I was just cleaning up anyways. Somehow, I don't believe that. What do you want? I got tea, milk, iced tea, and caffeine. Issei rushed towards the kitchen, placing his noodles on the table. Tea would do. She received no response from the brown-haired human, but she did hear him scuffling around the kitchen. Sona snatched a book from beneath the pillows, staring at the cover. Teleportation spells. She raised an eyebrow. Teleportation spells were no joke. They were easy, but the chances of the caster ending with half his body in a wall, losing a body part, or the circle propelling them through the void, were really high. In fact, only high-class devils were taught these. Not to peerage members or low-class to mid-class since it's dangerous. And a security risk. If it had been taught to everyone, then strays are going to be harder to catch. Sona-chan, what's with the sudden visit? She ignored the way he called her to slightly pout. I didn't know you had short-term memory loss. You promised me a chess match. I did. I'm sorry, I forgot. Well. He didn't really. Sona really wanted to see if he's alright. After all, he did just do the most balsiest thing ever in hell itself. Issei knew she was lying, but he also knew that she was just concerned. And he trusted her at least. She wouldn't kill him. Hopefully. Then I guess we should play here. Let me set it up. The bespectacled devil watched him disappear upstairs, her gaze never leaving his back. That guy was way too carefree. She might have been watching him before she alerted him, but the Ravenet was just testing a new spell. Really? And she saw him eat up those noodles like there was no tomorrow as he focused on the TV. The guy still had the capacity to procrastinate. Sona mulled over the idea of breaking the news to him about their marriage just to see his reaction, though she held her tongue. While Issei wasn't a lecherous pervert anymore, there were still a lot of things that didn't add up. How did he learn magic? Through books, but where did he get those books? It wasn't public information, that's for sure. Perhaps his mother was a mage. Or his father. But he's never mentioned about the other parent. Or any of them actually. Other than the fact that the mother died and his father wasn't anywhere. But that was for another day. She actually had a reason for coming to his house. Aside from checking up on him and trying her new spell, she had to invite him for tomorrow's party. The party dedicated to Rias breaking her engagement, which is quite amusing. Celebrating the cancellation of the most awaited wedding in the underworld, then inviting the perpetrator. It was like squeezing lemon over a paper cut. Which wouldn't really garner much positive reaction from the populace, but really. Serziches was a good leader, but sometimes the guy was really childish. Issei plopped down in front of her, having set up the chessboard. The pieces were red and white, made of glass. And hell, the board was magnetic. Brand new as well and glowing. Issei, where did you get these? Bought them. They were pretty cheap, actually. Way too cheap. Don't you know what these are? Chess pieces? He asked, rubbing the nape of his neck in confusion. The pieces weren't magnetic. They were stuck to the board with magic. Peerage pieces. The red ones had a slightly dark aura, hell the white stinged her when she touched. What? Were those pieces infused with devil and holy mana? Don't you feel the auras? Well they do, they look cool. I mean, look at this. He moved his piece to eat hers, his white pawn moving to her red pawn's tile. The auras grew, an ethereal structure forming around them, looking like an angel and a devil warrior respectively. She watched, mouth slightly agape as the spirit-like forms took their small skirmish to the air, and eventually the angel won, vanquishing the devil. The red piece disappeared and then teleported itself to the side of the board. And guess what? I got another set of pieces. They're colored gray. The three factions. Where did you get these? I might have lied about buying them. This the only thing my father left for us. Oh. Well whatever. Let's play. I did promise you that chess match, right? They continued their war, fascination present in both of their eyes, and Issei couldn't help but stare at the bespectacled girl's face. Her mesmerized look, added with her pink lips parted and with her purple eyes shining with unrestrained curiosity. He grinned. Enjoy the little things. Hey Issei. You going somewhere for the week? The Ravenet asked, gazing upwards from her thinking pose to look at the brunette obviously thinking hard. The lady was really doing good. She improved way too quickly. But he wasn't going to lose. Well, not really. Other than school, of course, Issei answered after a small moment. I was told to invite you for a party for a week. Eh? Why? You broke off Ria's engagement. So you're bound to be the man of honor. I could sense your sarcasm. It wasn't really hidden, she rolled her eyes. He pouted a little, moo. It wasn't my fault. I admit, a lot could have gone wrong, but I'm alive, aren't I? She had to concede on that one. Are you coming then? Let me ask Raynare. Sona's eyes narrowed slightly. She was jealous, that's for sure. He was hers, damn it. Hers. She calmed herself. Overreacting was very out of character for her. Though being possessive was always present in devils. Issei, do you want a harem? She asked out of the blue. The purple-eyed devil saw him splutter as she broke his composure. Where in the name of the sun did that come from? He shouted. She raised an eyebrow in response. Don't think so, I mean. I have a partner already, won't that strain our relationship? It wouldn't if she agrees. He lapsed into silence, moving another piece. This was literally their only game. Don't know we mean. I was lucky with Raynare, but I doubt that there are others who like me. She raised her eyebrow further. This wasn't how Issei would act. He was usually confident in his capabilities. But really? A low self-esteem? She frowned. She moved forward to hold his shoulders. There's me. What? I suppose I'll have to break it down for you. She leaned forwards, her face close to his. Remember when you beat me in chess? He nodded lightly. Well, you just signed yourself a contract with the devil. You're going to marry me. What? Seriously? I'm not ready. He panicked. Calm down, Issei. I was just kidding, she said as she leaned backwards, falling back to her normal position. He laughed nervously, with him being preoccupied with trying to fix his composure, the mage wasn't able to pick up her lie. Although a part of him wanted what she said to be true, it was squashed down by his sense of loyalty towards Raynare. But he mulled over the thought of asking the fallen angel on her outlook in polygamy. He might as well ask. And that is checkmate. See try, Sona. He sent her a thumbs up as her king's aura fell, the red hue disappearing. The game, Ice-kun. He raised an eyebrow. So it's Ice-kun now? Did Raynare-san say anything yet? She said yes, and that she'll be gone for the week as well. Why? Meh. Fallen angel business. Not really my place to tell. Very well. Then you should pack up for a week. I'll pick you up tomorrow. What about school? I didn't know you cared about school. I don't, he deadpanned. We'll be excused. You were placed under Ria's club for the moment, the student council president explained to him, not at all bothered by her loss. Then I suppose you'll leave now? Yes. See you tomorrow, Issei. Ah. Was I too late? The red dragon received no response, his host asleep. Dang it. I knew I shouldn't have slept. It mumbled as it lied down again and dozed off. This was the life of a bored dragon. He sighed into his hands for what seemed like the 100th time in the first 2 hours of the day. He didn't sleep. At all. Well, he did. And then he woke up 3 hours later, feeling hyped. And now he was dead tired. The mug in his hands contained what seemed to be his 15th coffee, his phone on the side, opened on a random game. His backpack and duffel bag was beside him, all ready to go. And so was he, actually. He had bought a plain version of the school's uniform, since he liked it very much. Plus pockets. There were a lot of pockets. After a moment of silence, he decided that he needed to Atlas nap, so he closed his eyes and allowed sleep to capture him. Sona could wait. But it was not meant to be. Good more, are you alright? Speak of the devil, and she shall appear in all her glory. If I say no, am I still required to go? He retorted, trying to shake off the sleepiness. He had woken up to the feeling of adrenaline, but his paranoid mind had also whirred into action, overthinking the possible event. From small-scale problems like tripping over air or spitting his drink at someone high up in the rankings, to large-scale ones like the start of the Second Holy War that they called, to accidentally burning someone. It was exhausting. Overthinking and pacing around, with barely anything to do. Yes, the devil had no mercy, apparently. He sighed, well then, let's go. I have to convert some people into raising the sun. Life is troublesome. The underworld was stiff. And now that he had the time to actually sightsee, he abused it to take in the details. The buildings were mostly based on human structures, apparently because most of the devil population were now reincarnated devils. The results of the previous war added with their own civil war, the population dropped. And then the question rised. Most of the reincarnated devils had average mana and frail builds, with the exception of some. Were they not trained? Hey Sona. Why do these devils look? Issei trailed off, thinking how he could say it without offending anyone. Weak. She supplied for him. More like unprepared, he amended. They aren't really educated. Their kings expect them to be cannon fodder and are usually pawns. The supposed weakest, the bespectacled girl explained to him. So what do they know? Do they even know what they fight for? The new ones barely know anything. The experienced ones are most likely dead, strays, or slaves. What? Which is why it's my dream to make a school for them. To at least let them know the basics like the rating games. Sounds like a good dream, but I suppose there are people against this. She nodded her head, her face actually showing emotions. Resentment. The pillars laughed at my dream. They said it wasn't worth it. Tell me, why do you need their support? I need the approval. And the publicity. Then ask them this. If there's something that's gonna kill them, and the only person there to stop it is a reincarnated devil, then what do they think will happen when the devil is weak and unprepared? So threaten them. You're a devil. They are devils. They mocked you. It is merely natural. Is that your logic? Not always. I'll take it into consideration, she accepted. His gaze trailed upwards, towards the realm's purple sky. How the hell did you get that thing there? Is it an illusion? The human pointed at the moon-like object in the underworld. The moon. How did you see that? It's still morning. It's still early in the morning, and I've noticed the clocks. They follow human time. Which means the moon should still be at least visible. Oh. Well, it's artificial. Made by the Four Great Mass. I will not question how they managed that. Better for both of us, she said. Where's your peerage? And Rias? He asked aloud, switching topics. My peerage is still preparing themselves. Rias' peerage are already in the mansion, the Citriere responded, looking at him curiously. You're asking a lot of questions today, she continued. New place, new stuff. Always question things has been my routine when there's something different, Issei mumbled, looking around the capital city Lilith with unrestrained curiosity. I see. We are getting near. Right. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, technically purple, but who cares about that? Everything was shiny. Gold, silver, some random chrome color in between, and more shiny stuff. Chandeliers hang on the ceiling, golden cutlery, unblemished, white tablecloths, and literally shining plates and glasses. He noticed Sona squint her eyes. She seemed rather annoyed at the bright stuff. And frankly, so was he. Everything was glowing and shining and reflecting the bloody fuck. Oh, I see you've arrived, a voice said behind them both, interrupting his thoughts about the irritating shining objects. Lady Graphia. Sona greeted with a slight bow, and he followed. Please follow me, the silver-haired maid acknowledged, her eyes squinted as well. They followed her through a corridor, entering a separate area that held the ball and the throne room. Suotan. You're here. A black blur flashed from one side to the other and glumped Issei's companion. El Leviathan Sama. Please act like a leader for once. Issei snickered. Sona was blushing, her face flushed like Ria's hair, her posture was stiff, and her eyes seemed so tired and embarrassed. The one she was reprimanding was a girl that seemed to be younger than the both of them, with twin pigtails, a magical girl costume. Though her mana capacity said the complete opposite of her appearance. Compared to Sona and him, their mana combined wouldn't even be a part of the girl's 20%. Which is totally insane. Why are they monsters? Huo? Is this your boyfriend, Sotan? The Leviathan's attention switched to his, which slightly put him on edge. The boyfriend no. Issei snickered again. This was rare. Sona and flustered. They usually never got together. Cute. Oh ho. Cute, eh? Well, let me tell you something, you hurt her, I hurt you. Got that? The girl threatened him. Did I say that out loud? He wondered, though the way Sona's face flushed more, it was affirmative. Boy. Don't ignore me. I am the great and powerful Seraphol Leviathan. Seraphol childishly pouted at him. Moo. Leviathan. I have heard of that. Really? Her eyes widened, shining in childish curiosity. Definitely. How? Sotan talks about you. I didn't know my Sotan loved me like that. Such a little tsundere. The childish Ravenette squealed as she hugged her little sister. Sona was still stuck in between embarrassment and amusement, though the latter seemed to be more dominant. I think that's enough, Leviathan Sama. Graphia interfered. Ooh, you're no fun, Fia-chan. The maid's eye twitched slightly. Oh well. I'll see you later, Sotan and Sotan's boyfriend. Seraphol Leviathan said as she hopped around. Issei laughed. Sona glared at him. Rias and the others arrived earlier and they were giggling as well. Ooh, Sotan. What's with the glare? The mage asked innocently, imitating her elder sister's voice. Just don't, she seemed to accept her fate and smile slightly. He grinned at her. Never a dull moment to town these devils. Hey there, Asia. How are you holding up? Issei-san. I've been doing fine, thank you. The reincarnated nun smiled softly. I hope you have been adjusting well. Aside from some incidents, I have. Incidents? Issei asked. Who couldn't stop praying to Theum? Him. Yeah, I understand. Old habits die hard, I suppose. Why yes, Asia stuttered, her head bowed. Then maybe you should praise the Sioux. He was cut off when someone pulled his ear. Ow, ow. Sona. I will not allow you to influence someone with your insanity, she said sternly. Fine. Let go. Issei whined. She did after a couple of seconds, though her glare was still in place. The blonde-haired devil giggled, you two act like a couple, she commented. Sona froze slightly, forcing a blush down. She was better at controlling her emotions than this. Issei laughed awkwardly, scratching his head. A bell rang, signifying the start of the party. Sona, Issei and Asia went to join their group, a slightly awkward atmosphere permeating the air. Greetings. I suppose everyone is present now. Then allow me to say the purpose of this party. Surzich's Lucifer started his speech, his voice booming with authority, though how he managed to make it sound friendly was beyond the mage. We are gathered here today to clarify what has happened to Rias Gremory and Riser Phoenix's engagement. He paused, as if thinking over what he's about to say. It has been broken. Riser Phoenix has lost to a deal, and therefore must follow the wishes of the winner. The red-haired leader spared a glance at Issei, who was busy looking at the shining wine glass. Some of the devils noticed this and followed Surzich's gaze, and their eyes narrowed in suspicion, and some already thinking ways of getting the boy into their peerages, and some wishing to kill the boy. Though none of them voiced any outrage, the next one definitely elicited a response. And of course, to celebrate the peace treaty that has been created between Devilkind and the Fallen Angel faction. Silence. Issei could hear a pin drop in the distance. What? Surely you jest. A random devil suddenly screamed. And from there, everything started to crash. Issei's eyes narrowed. He bet that this will cause a civil war or worse. Fallen angels were one of the main enemies during the war. And since they were literally neighbors with the devils, they posed a threat. The faction could mobilize its troops at a moment's notice and attack. But the only problem was the fact that there were barely anything to fight with and fight against. Population was low. The armies are mostly consisted of low-leveled angels or reincarnated devils, with barely anything to fight with. The Fallen had little amount of high-class soldiers, and so did the devils. And of course, the tentative ceasefire between the three great factions. Which would definitely trigger the restart of the Great War. But he knew Surzich's and whoever was the leader of the Fallen Angels weren't stupid enough to try and attack the other. They were leaders, and their main priority was the lives of their race. As the rage pressed on, Issei couldn't help but wonder at Surzich's actions. You don't hold a party in the middle of your territory right after your enemy decides to make peace. It was like presenting your back to them. A show of trust. But even then, he should have chosen a neutral territory. Like Seikuo. A devil-controlled place, but no one with a brain would dare attack that place, lest they face the fury of the other two factions. The timing of the treaty was off as well. Why would you do that right after an issue? Both sides are definitely angry. The Fallen trespassed Kuo, attacked the heiresses stationed, then attempt to steal a sacred gear. And for the Fallen, the devils killed their kin and would definitely ask for blood. It didn't make any sense. Peace does not happen overnight. It takes years. And a single mistake could shatter everything. Silence. All of you silence. Surzic slammed his fist on the podium with no amount of restraint, his mana flooding the room, oppressing everyone. Do you not understand why I had to agree? We are dying. The amount of pure-blooded devils are improportional to those who were reincarnated. Our race will be wiped out if we don't stop killing each other. Do you want our future generation experience what we went through? Do you want them to grow up in the midst of strife, both within and outside the boundaries, to fight for their lives before they even achieve the full extent of their childhood? The crowd silenced. Because I don't. I want my son to feel what it means to be a child. To remain ignorant to the ways of the real world before it's his time to grow up. And peace is the only way to allow him this. The leader stopped his speech for a short while, looking at the speechless crowd's faces, gathering their reactions. And I highly doubt that you do. We all know what war does to a person. We all know how it took away lives. We all know how it ruined us all. Do you want that to happen to them as well? Issei had to hand it to the devil. He raised some valid points. The devils were silenced, and then one by one they shook their head no. Then this is the beginning of peace between two factions. A start of a world where no child will be forced to take arms. A world where everyone is safe, he ended his speech. Everyone was still stuck on their seats. Issei clapped his hands, smiling slightly. And from there, everyone gave applause. Looks like he lost his bet. And then his thoughts caught up to him. If they were celebrating peace between the fallen and the devils, then that means Raynare is also here. He didn't know if he should feel relieved, anxious, happy, or afraid. All of those for reasons unknown to him. Except for happy. 'Cause you know. Girlfriends and stuff. End of the part 2. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.